Hello, everybody. So I think you've seen me up here before. If you're new here, I'm not Adam. My name is Lenny. I'm the music and media arts director around this place. And I'm kind of going to be hogging all the stage time this morning. Adam thought that would be a good idea, so we'll see if he's right. And if you have any complaints after this morning, you can file those with Adam. Just to give you a little bit of background on what I'm going to be talking about this morning, I was raised in the church. I was raised by great Christian parents who brought me up in that. So I have this history and these experiences with the church and with Christianity that go back to the age of 0. And I think when we're in our 20s, which I'm in my mid-20s, I think this is one of those times when we like to be a little bit deconstructive about the things we were raised on, not necessarily destroying the things we were raised on, throwing them out the window, but I think I fall into that category where I definitely like to ask difficult questions. And, it's just, I think a lot of us who have been raised in the church, it's in our nature to kind of want to deconstruct some of these ideas we were raised on. So, that being my nature, that may fall into a little bit what I'm talking about today. I may be doing a little bit of deconstruction, but hopefully it'll be deconstructive in a constructive way, if that means anything. Anyway, what I'm going to be talking about, or attempting to talk about, I'm new at this, so go easy on me, is at least my view of the relationship of art and Christianity, the arts. And this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart because I, of course, consider myself a Christian, and I also like to think of myself as an artist. Now, this doesn't mean that I am an artist, but I sure like to think of myself as one, perhaps in much the same way I like to think of myself as a Power Ranger when I was 7 years old. But I sure like to think of myself as an artist anyway, and I think it's in our nature as humans that we have this desire to create and to produce something with our lives, to take raw materials and make something of interest and of value out of them. And not all of us consider ourselves to be artists, but I think this has broad application to everything from choosing to start a business to raise a family, wide variety of hobbies and lifestyles, I think. And I think it's inherent in all of us, this desire to create, and there's a very simple reason for this, at least from a spiritual standpoint. And that would be Genesis 1:1, God created, and Genesis 1:27, God created man in his own image. So it's kind of built in to the very root of our humanity. God's the original creator, and he designed people to emulate himself. So we have this in us. And as I said, this is going to apply to a broad range of things, I hope. And I certainly don't claim to be an authority on anything I'm going to be talking about, so certainly feel free to disagree with me or to not care about anything I talk about. I'm kind of just making it up anyway. But specifically, as I said, I'm going to be talking about the role, at least my perspective, of the role of art in Christian culture and the role of Christian spirituality in the artistic community as a whole, because in my deconstructive nature, I think we as Christians, we have a lot of room for improvement in how we approach the arts. And I have a lot of questions like, why is it that Christians seem to have so little to offer in the role in the world of the mainstream arts? Why does it seem that it's so rare to find modern-day Christians making important films that stand the test of time, writing serious works of fiction, making innovative music, and so forth? And is Christ only interested in us investing our artistic energy into things of a religious or spiritual nature, or is he interested in a much broader scope of the human experience? And I think he is, and that's basically what I'm going to be talking about this morning. Here we've kind of built our philosophy. If you know us well, we've kind of built our philosophy around what Adam calls the both and gospel. We've kind of made this our identity as a church, and this is the perspective of the gospel, that it's not only about personal salvation and life after death, but just as much it's about the restoration of culture and the creating of culture in the life we're living right now. And I think, unfortunately, from this standpoint, looking at the arts in Christianity, I think we fall short a lot of the time in achieving this goal that's set forth by the gospel. I think the fact is most Christian art simply attempts to fit into a pre-existing culture, and it does very little to drive culture forward and to actually create culture and influence culture. Now, this is the case, I think, everywhere you look, not just in Christianity, but it seems to be, especially in Christian art, that this is the case. It wants to be comfortable, it wants to be easily marketable to its target demographic, and often it's just kind of preaching to the choir. And what are the reasons for this? What are the issues surrounding this? I think there are many, and they're complicated. There are a few, when I was thinking about this stuff, that kind of came to my mind. Possible reasons that Christian art tends to amount to kind of these subpar imitations of things that have already been done in secular culture and been done with greater excellence and originality in secular culture. So these are a few of the issues that came to my mind as I was thinking about this. There are three of them. The first is that we as Christians may view art as simply being a tool for evangelism, and that it doesn't have any value in and of itself unless it's used as a tool for evangelism. Now, I think there is a place for this, but the fact is that if this is always the perspective, the actual quality of the work and the originality of the work is always going to take a back seat to the message that the artist is trying to push. And I think the goal is kind of self-defeating, because there are all these people out there who are surrounded already by things of very high excellence and very high originality. There's high standards out there, and we expect them somehow to pay attention to what we're offering, and I think it's unrealistic. That's issue number one. I think issue number two is the opposite and the opposite extreme, and that may be the perspective that Christian art is for Christians. And I think this is a common one, especially among people who don't view themselves as Christians, that we write music for Christians to listen to, that we write books for Christians to read, and so forth. And of course, the problem with this is people who don't identify themselves as Christians are never going to pay any attention to anything that seems to have a Christian label. And in the same way, Christian artists, we're not going to have any sense of a need to excel within the greater artistic community, because all we need to worry about is catering to our target demographic, which is Christians. So that's issue number two. And issue number three is maybe a bit more of a controversial one. This is one I'm particularly interested in because I'm kind of a gloomy person, maybe. I don't know if you've picked up on that. I try not to be anyway. But I think this third issue may be that we feel it's spiritually unhealthy or even sinful to embrace some of the darker, more depraved aspects of the human condition within our art. And the result of this is going to be work that, of course, feels watered down, and it's going to feel detached from reality. It's going to feel idealistic, and people aren't going to identify with that, even though the Bible itself is filled with these things, especially when we look at the Old Testament. I think we as Christians tend to want to shy away from these topics. So these are a few of the issues that come to my mind when I think about the arts, and how do we address it? Here's how I address it. I normally complain about it, but I think I'm expected to say something worthwhile up here this morning, so I'm going to try to do more than complain about it. I think that the concept of organic kingdom bringing that we've come to know very well around here is instrumental in this. We look at the life of Christ, and we don't see him engaged in one religious activity after another. We don't see him showboating his godhood, and we don't see him pushing his religion on anybody. In fact, he was in opposition to people who did act in this way. And Christ simply lived organically, and he lived with beauty, and he lived with excellence. And I think this is what drew people to him, both the faithful and the skeptics. And we, as a church, have identified with this and hope to live in this way, and I think it should apply to our art just as much as any other aspect of our lives. So how does organic kingdom bringing apply to these things? Going back to our issues that I just outlined, going back to art as a tool for evangelism, again, the problem with this is that trying to blatantly have an agenda with our art, people are going to usually see that for what it is. And it's we don't call it art. We have another word for it. We call it propaganda. And propaganda is a dirty word. We don't like it because we see propaganda as someone trying to just sway us to their side of an argument. And that's its only purpose. But we look at organic kingdom bringing, and we see that's about living our lives to serve needs and to cultivate relationships without any hidden agendas. But by living in this way, we can be the light of Christ into people's lives, and we can even earn respect and earn people's interest in what we have to say if the issue of spirituality does eventually come up. There's a guy named T-Bone Burnett. He's a songwriter, and he's done a lot of music for films and stuff. And he says this: if Jesus is the light of the world, there are two kinds of songs you can write. You can write songs about the light, or you can write songs about what you can see from the light. And C.S. Lewis said he believed in God like he believed in the sun, not because he could see God, but because by him he could see everything else. And I think this is profound impact or profound insight in how we approach our art, because art should be thought-provoking and inspiring and enriching to our lives, but I think it can do so while still simply existing as art. And it should not only be interested in religion, but it should involve all aspects of our lives, just as Christ was interested in all aspects of our lives. And I think it's when we give Christ lordship over the entirety of our existence, at that point we become free to really create art that addresses and speaks to every aspect of our humanity. And I think God is honored in this. Moving on, how does organic kingdom bringing apply to the opposite extreme, the perspective that Christian art is only for Christians? We've talked about the church not existing just for the sake of the church, and at Narrate, our motto has kind of been to be the kind of church that exists for the benefit of its non-believers. Because we look at Christ and we see him hanging out with non-believers and not spending all of his time with the religious people. And there's definitely a place for art that is intended to cater to Christians. I don't want to devalue that, because to devalue that would be to discredit my own job, being the media arts director for a church. But this should not always be the ultimate goal. And we all know Ecclesiastes 3. It says there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Now, let's all sing it together. To everything turn. Just kidding, don't sing it. There's a guy named Steve Turner who wrote a book called Imagine, a Vision for Christians in the Arts, and he puts that same idea this way. He says, there are many artists who choose to create obviously religious art, and hopefully they aren't doing so because they feel that their work would otherwise be worthless. Just as some would rather compose cantatas than light orchestral pieces, they would rather paint biblical scenes than self-portraits. The church requires their talent. We cannot criticize the standard of worship songs, Sunday school literature, youth group drama, if we don't encourage writers and artists to do their best in these areas. The problem comes when artists who could be contributing to the discussion taking place in the mainstream arts are hidden away in the church, and artists who should be sticking to the church are deluded into thinking that they are going to transform contemporary culture. Artists not working within a church culture who make the spiritual experience the dominant theme of their work are extremely rare. They're usually tenacious and slightly eccentric because there is no overlap of experience with the secular mind. What they do has to succeed because it is so powerful that even those unbelievers are overwhelmed. And this is possible. I think there are people who achieve it, and in just a little bit, you're going to see an example of some people who I think exemplify this very well, named Daniel Smith and Sufjan Stevens, but we'll get to them in just a minute. Moving on to our third issue, our reluctance to embrace the harsher realities of human existence in our art. How does organic kingdom bringing apply to this? I think naturally most of us associate Christian art with being kind of warm, fuzzy, feel-good music and films and paintings. But the most powerful art and the most influential art is going to be honest, and an honest perspective of reality is going to include a lot of darkness and a lot of ugliness. There was a novelist named Flannery O'Connor, and she was a Christian, and she wrote this: "My own feeling is that writers who see by the light of their Christian faith will have in these times the sharpest eyes for the grotesque, for the perverse, for the unacceptable. Redemption is meaningless unless there is a cause for it in the actual life we live. And for the last few centuries, there has been operating in our culture the secular belief that there is no such cause." So for this reason, I think it's not only acceptable, but it's vital that we don't avoid or sugarcoat these things. Now, everybody's different. Everybody views things subjectively, and what may be healthy for one person may be unhealthy for another. But I think this applies also in how we, of course, perceive art. When I was a kid growing up, this church I went to as a kid, in the hallway on the wall was a board, and on this board were movie ratings. Has anyone seen these? Anyone remember them? I don't want to insult anybody if you like these, so that's not my intent. But anyway, these movie ratings, these weren't PG-13 type ratings. They went from +4 to -4, and the +4 was very spiritually edifying. These were movies everyone should see, and these were movies like The Prince of Egypt. And I think it had to be a cartoon to get a +4 rating to even qualify. Then -4, down at the very bottom, these were pure evil. Harry Potter, pure evil. That was I think that got a -4. Now, I'm not going to comment on the value of these in our parenting, because I'm not a parent, and I don't plan to be a parent for a very, very, very long time. So I'm sure there is some value in these if you use these things in helping you raise your kids. But I'm not commenting on that. I'm commenting on viewing films as art. And I think when we try to systematically quantify how every aspect of a film or any type of art that we're viewing is going to affect people's mental and spiritual well-being universally, I think that can be a dangerous thing. We need to be careful about that, just like we need to be careful about not over-systematizing the Bible, which is a narrative full of art and full of mystery. And I think we need to be careful about not over-systematizing it down to nothing but doctrine and a user manual I think that's a cheapening of the Bible. And I think it's a cheapening of art when we approach it in the same way, because, as I said, everybody is different, and art by its very nature is open to subjective interpretation. So what may be spiritually unhealthy for one may be actually very inspiring and spiritually enriching for someone else. If you're interested in films like me, I'm kind of a film nerd, and if you're interested in even just gaining maybe some fresh perspective on some of the type of films that Christians often look down upon, at least in mainstream Christian culture, you may want to check out this book. It's called How Movies Helped Save My Soul. It's by a guy named Gareth Higgins. It's really good, and he talks about a lot of great films in there. So if you're interested in that, check that out. So how do we put a face to all of this? As I said, I believe there are some really good examples out there of people who do this well, and I think looking at them can be an inspiration to the rest of us. Out of the dissatisfaction in the late 60s and 70s with the state of Christian art at the time, there came movements like Christ is the Answer. And Christ is the Answer was it was kind of a hippie-like group of Christians. They didn't call themselves hippies, they called themselves Jesus people. And they were actually very influential in pushing art forward and encouraging artistic freedom and creativity. And as a matter of fact, my mom was one such Jesus person. And that's actually her standing at the top behind the rocking chair there on the cover of her band Dayspring's hit record, Come and Follow. That was my mom back in her Jesus person days. And this really has no relevance to what I'm talking about. I just think it's funny because I really doubt they were very influential on mainstream culture. This record didn't even get a major distribution deal. But I like seeing my mom in her old in all-girl folk Christian band. Anyway, in 1984, Jesus People USA, another movement, started a festival called Cornerstone Festival. And this is a huge music festival that really embraced and chose to showcase artists who were lesser known and very unique and had a unique voice. And there's a guy named Daniel Smith who kind of got his start in the public eye playing at Cornerstone Festival, who I mentioned a minute ago. And he, along with people like Sufjan Stevens, I think, exemplify these ideas really, really well. And there's a documentary about Daniel Smith. It's a full-length documentary, and I just took some pieces from it that I think point to this really well and put a good face to this. So I kind of took those pieces, put them together into a video for us this morning. So this is about 18 minutes or so, and I think it shows really well how our work, how our art, how what we do with our lives can be relevant in culture as a whole and really have an influence and have a place there. So enjoy this, and I'll see you in 18 minutes or so.
Hi, guys. Thanks for coming. Probably most of you know that this is Daniel Smith, right here, of the Danielson family, a.k.a. Brother Danielson. Now, can we talk a little bit about what some of the songs are about? I mean, I think probably most people who've heard the Danielson family are aware that the music is often about faith and so forth.
Yeah.
Would that be a correct way to describe it?
Yeah, I think so. To me, I'm just trying to write about my life, and so that's going to include trying to find the spiritual in the everyday, and the journey of life, and trying to pick these moments that really jump out as where the natural and the supernatural connect, and so I don't really think about it in terms of anything aside from that. But to me, it's just the creative process and the creator go hand in hand. So.
To the ground.
in a sense.
Is there a simple explanation? Your name is Daniel Smith, and yet you record as Danielson family or Brother Danielson. Where does the Danielson evolve from?
Danielson is how I started out as my sole identity, really, and before the family came along, and it was just that spiritual experience I talked about, this realization that we're all sons and daughters of God, and so Danielson really became this idea of operating out of that newly realized identity.
Actually, Jeff Buckley was a fan, if you know who he is, of the Danielson family, and he called my boyfriend at the time, and he said, you guys have to go and check out this band. There's the whole family, and they all have red hair, and they play this amazing, fresh music.
Some of their songs I think are just really powerful, and I don't think that you can't not be somewhat religiously moved by it. For instance, that one song that I really love where they clap and just repeat like, I love my Lord over and over again. I don't know. That one always gets me going. It always sends me to church the next day.
I'm really kind of freaked out by them, and I'm in a metal band.
I can be moved in extension. Like, I can see somebody being moved on stage and be moved by them being moved. I don't have to be moved by the same force.
Yeah, I listen to music about taking drugs. I don't take drugs. I listen to music about taking Christ. I don't take Christ. But I like the music. I like the sincerity of the message.
As soon as they were turning up on stage, I instantly got this stiffening in my back, which is like happens whenever I step near church, whenever because of the my background, my history.
In the little introductory thing that I had to write about your band for the program, I made a point of saying that like people shouldn't waste their time trying to figure it out while it was happening. They should just enjoy it while it's happening.
That's great.
And that was the point that I was trying to make, and not that it was, that it's, there's no greater meaning, just that you shouldn't stop to try to figure out the greater meaning while you're enjoying it.
I appreciated that.
It does strike me as a little bit insincere and a little bit phony when people are initially suspicious of a band if they get wind of the fact that they might be Christians. That does seem odd to me.
Well, I kind of understand it, actually, because I think it's just based on, the previous acts that have come.
Prior exposure.
Exactly, and just the way it's been presented in a very kind of, coming out of this kind of inbred subculture, and then trying to break forth with this, very kind of offensive way of going about things. People, sometimes in the church, people think, well, people are just offended by, the name of Jesus or something. But it's much more the delivery that's offensive.
Right.
I wish there was a real Christian music industry, or a Christian music scene, put it that way. I wish there was a real one. Because then what it would be doing is they would be selling CDs for $8.
Right.
They would be, giving full artistic license, encouraging creativity. They would be really doing the things, Christ did.
Right.
And continues to do.
And Daniel, some of the Christian pop music I've heard has sort of a self-satisfied, complacent sound to it that doesn't draw me into it at all. But when you sing about the beauty and the difficulty of your Christian faith, even though I'm not Christian myself, I can relate to what you're singing to, and I'm drawn into it. What is it that I suppose you must hope for that someone
I
will
do
be
hope
drawn
for that.
in?
I do hope for that. I don't consider myself making Christian pop music or Christian music at all as a category.
Because that does, even though it wouldn't necessarily be, that is a stylistic category, isn't it?
Well, and yes, even though it shouldn't be. But aside from that, even just the term itself implies that it's for a certain group of people. Christian music or whatever implies that it's for
it's not just expressing a Christian attitude; it's for Christians.
Right. Yeah, and that's that. So aside, really, the industry part of it and it being a category and these type of things, I just don't relate to it.
What do you think the biggest misperception of what you do is?
I don't know. The thing that drives me nuts are music reviews that have to qualify themselves for the first half of the review of
what do you mean?
how they don't necessarily believe this, but and I think
like they don't believe like religious.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and it drives me nuts because it's so much about the reviewer,
right.
or like, I've never read a review like reviewing some reggae record saying, I just don't agree with this Rastafarianism, but it's a great record, I have to just admit that. Getting myself out of the way of these songs being made so the Lord can construct them himself, that's the goal. Obviously, I'm involved, but I try to remain humbled and keep my ego, out of the way. So in that sense, I think it's the most natural way to create. But I think it's the most exciting way as well, because you're just watching things happen, and I know it's the Holy Spirit that does that work. But the Holy Spirit is a small, still voice. So then I get to watch and participate. The way a little kid kind of helps Dad change the tire. He's not really changing the tire. And he gets to feel involved,
Now, the Danielson family, I understand, performs often in nurses' uniforms. That's kind of a symbol of healing, I suppose.
Exactly, yes.
And now I've been seeing pictures of you dressed up as a tree.
Yeah, that's true.
And is that your usual performance garb as Brother Danielson?
As Brother Danielson, yes. It's a 9-fruit tree. And it's
got different kinds of
fruit. Yeah, 9 different types of fruit, and for the 9 fruits of the Spirit. And it's
what are the 9 fruits of the Spirit?
Okay, let's see. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. So there's some good ones in there.
Yeah.
Hey, look at this. It's you. You're my imaginary friend.
saying goes that I'm recording a record for each of the 50 states, and I started out with Michigan, and Seven Swans is a little break from that. We're going to end our set with a song from a record I'm working on now called Illinois. And this one's called Chicago.
If I was crying in the van with my friend, it was for freedom from myself and from the land. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes. I made a lot of mistakes.
He's the multi-instrumentalist of multi-instrumentalists. It's just wonderful. The whole deal, the composing down like to the nitty-gritty of recording. I mean, he's just from A to Z. Does it all.
A musical genius.
And that's how I feel about Sufjan. Beautiful, beautiful. Like you look at a painting, you look at any good piece of art, and you can view it like straight beauty.
I don't think Sufjan's spirituality is put off in any way. I think it adds a lot of depth and character to his music.
Yeah, I'm a Christian and I'm a really normal person that's not like a part of the Christian religion and doing scary things that people are afraid of. I think that's really what connects me with some of the things that I like. So this is who I am and this is who Sufjan is, and he sings all these really lovely songs and I find a lot of home in them.
The bestseller in the world is the Bible, for one reason. It's the greatest piece of literature of all time.
But I do believe the good that comes from the selling of Bibles and the getting of Bibles and the reading of Bibles is definitely identified with the Father's business.
I've been thinking about the salesman routine for probably 7-8 years. I just love the idea of going door to door, which just sounds incredibly scary, and it's very imposing. People don't want their private space, invaded. But at the same time, there's some kind of like making the first move. If you have something great to bring, perhaps the homeowner would be happy that you showed up. So I love the idea of bringing handmade objects. To have this tonight is pretty remarkable for me personally.
Oh, good.
It really is a full circle.
That's what we're here for.
To have the music and the art back together again.
Well, they are the same thing.
Yeah.
They come.
That's what I kept telling my professors who were trying to keep the music in the music school and the visuals. Paintings are making music and musicians are making paintings. See, I thought Warhol had dealt with all that already.
We're going to deal with it. We're going to deal with it forever.
The inspiration for the salesman idea really was trying to find a solution to bring the audio and visuals together. Music and art and creativity it comes from God. He's the author. He's the creative one. He's the creator of all things. And so I'm just pointing. I'd like to talk to you about some items I brought with me today. They're called Great Comfort Stuff, and they're handmade by me. And I'd like to show them to you, and if you're interested in purchasing them later, you can come up and talk to me. Item number 1, the Good Eye Blinders. You can walk around the streets of New York, and there's a lot of shopping takes place around here, as I noticed today. If you don't have any money, put these on, you just walk right by all the stores, straight home. Or if you're at the beach, for instance, and it's a bikini beach, and you're not interested in looking around at the bikinis, you just put these things on and keep your eyes on the ocean. Success to me is first and foremost staying true to who you're made to be. who you're created to be. You know, I believe that from the beginning of time, before time, there's a plan that's been written for each one of us. And when you're born, those things are in you, and the life's journey is to find out what those things are, and to discover those tools within us, and to exercise those skills and refine them. To me, that's success. And for Sufjan to be doing what he's doing, and it so happens to be appealing to a really wonderful, large crowd, is great. I have the same goal, just to stay true to the vision that I've been given and who I'm made to be, and I'm just going to stick with that. And if more and more people like it, that's great. I started out alone as Daniel the son in my relationship with God and my identity as Daniel the son, so that when the family is busy and I continue to play, then it goes back to where I came from and where it started. And yes, I may be alone on the stage, but the identity is the same. I'm Daniel the son, and the Father's with me.
If you're interested in watching that in its entirety, it's called Danielson, a family movie. It's a really interesting documentary. Parental discretion is advised, however, because those fan interviews and whatnot are uncensored. I censored them for our purposes because I'm just thoughtful like that. Anyway, I just want to finish with this. 1 Corinthians 10. For the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do it all for the glory of God. We can glorify God in the everyday, in the mundane, in the non-religious activities of our lives. And we can glorify God with art that is emotionally stirring and influential and exists simply as art and has beauty in that, and emulating the Creator in that way. Let's pray. God, thanks for this morning. I pray that you would help us to have both boldness and humility in our art and in all that we do. And I pray that that we would look to you for our ultimate inspiration in all that we do. And bless us in our efforts to do this. I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. So as you go, don't forget to fill out info cards if you'd like to get a hold of us. I believe there's also something, Young Life has, an ATV out there, something for raffle tickets. So you can pick up, or what is it? Fundraiser tickets or something for Young Life. Sarah just informed me of this announcement before I got up here, so I don't really know anything about it. There is a Young Life thing outside. Have a great day, everybody. See you later.